My dad started dating my boyfriend's mom. Yeah, you read that right. My boyfriend became my sort of stepbrother overnight. He didn't take it well. First, he dumped me. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he made it his personal mission to ruin my life. At school, he turned everyone against me. The rumors, the pranks, the constant bullying, it was relentless. But life has a way of evening the score. One day, out of nowhere, I became rich, filthy rich. And just like that, everything changed. And then, one day, he showed up. His eyes were red, his voice raw with emotion. I made a mistake. He said. I regret everything. Chapter 1. Grayson slammed a book onto my desk in front of the entire class. Hey, sweetheart, grab me to tacos. He said, his voice dripping with mockery. One without chili. She's on her period. The room erupted in laughter, but I didn't flinch. This wasn't anything new. Grayson had been treating me like this ever since we broke up. It hadn't always been this way. We used to have something sweet, something that felt real. But barely a week into our relationship, my dad came home with a woman and dropped a bombshell. This is your new mom. He announced. I stood there speechless, unable to process what I was hearing. Because that new mom was Grayson's mother. The next day, Grayson dumped me without hesitation. Get out of my face. He said coldly. You and your dad are nothing but trash. From that moment on, he treated me like I was beneath him. He hated my dad, and by extension, he hated me too. After the breakup, he made sure I couldn't escape him. He paraded around with every mean girl who had ever bullied me, hooking up with them just to rub it in my face. Sometimes he'd kiss them right in front of me. For 2.5 years, I let him walk all over me. I swallowed my pride, ignored the humiliation, and endured it all. But today was different. I got up from my seat, walked over to him with a smile plastered on my face, and grabbed the water bottle sitting on his desk. His little group of friends, always ready to back him up, started jeering. Grayson, man, you've got everyone wrapped around your finger. One of them said. Even now, she's running errands for you. Grayson leaned back in his chair, smiling like he owned the world. What can I say? Personal charm. I tilted the bottle and poured the water over his head. Charm this. I said, dropping the empty bottle onto his lap. The laughter stopped. Grayson sat there, dripping wet, too stunned to speak. Chapter 2. I couldn't believe I'd actually done that. But honestly, things had been building up to this moment for a while now. 3 days ago, Grayson had ordered me to make him coffee. I did, but not before adding a tiny bit of my own snot to the mix. As I handed him the cup, something strange happened. A robotic voice echoed in my head. Ding ding ding. Host's affection for ex-boyfriend has dropped to 0. Awarding host $100 million. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. But then my phone buzzed. A notification popped up. 100,000,000 has been deposited to your global black card ending in 8888. I stared at the screen in disbelief, convinced it was a scam. To test it, I linked the card to my payment app and ordered a massive family bucket from KFC. When the payment went through, I just sat there, stunned. That's when it hit me. I was rich. Not just well-off, stupidly rich. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. Grayson and his mom wouldn't have the power to control my dad and me anymore. In fact, with this kind of money, I wouldn't be surprised if Grayson's mom ended up begging for my dad's attention someday. The thought made me laugh. I'd spent so long suppressing my anger, playing the quiet, obedient girl. But now, I had the freedom to go a little crazy. Drenching Grayson in class today was just the beginning. And let me tell you, there's nothing more liberating than finally letting go. Chapter 3. After the water incident, the entire room fell silent. My classmates stared at me like I'd grown a second head. For years, they'd seen me as Grayson's doormat, the quiet, spineless girl who never fought back. And now I just flipped the script in the most dramatic way possible. The whispers started almost immediately. Did you see that? I can't believe she actually did it. Grayson, still dripping wet, looked like he couldn't decide whether to be shocked or furious. His face twisted with rage as he stood up, his voice low and dangerous. Nadia, what the hell is wrong with you? I crossed my arms and smirked. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? Last time I checked, we broke up years ago. So why the hell are you still treating me like your personal servant? His jaw clenched as he leaned in close, lowering his voice so only I could hear. If you don't knock it off, I'll throw you and your dad out of the house. I laughed loud and unapologetic and leaned in just as close. Oh, Grayson, I whispered, mimicking his tone. If you touch my dad, I'll make sure everyone knows about the time you spied on the principal in the shower. Oh, and let's not forget your little collection of pink underwear. His expression froze, all the color draining from his face. Satisfied, I turned on my heel and walked out of the room. For about 3 seconds, I felt invincible. And then, as I rounded the corner, I ran straight into Grayson's fan club, the group of mean girls who'd been trailing after him since the day we broke up. Chapter 4. The moment I stepped into the hallway, one of them stuck out her foot and I went flying. I hit the floor hard, the impact knocking the air out of my lungs. Pain shot through my chest as I struggled to breathe, my ribs aching with every gasp. Slowly, I pushed myself up, leaning against the wall for support. My eyes locked onto theirs, and I bit down the anger bubbling up inside me. What are you staring at? One of them sneered. Keep looking, and we'll gouge your eyes out. They'd been pulling stunts like this for years. Back then, their bullying was small and petty, stealing my erasers and hiding my homework. I never fought back because I didn't want to make things worse. But this was different. They'd crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let it slide. I straightened up, ignoring the pain, and deliberately provoked them, baiting them into going further. If they wanted to fight, I'd make sure they threw the first punch. And they did. The next day, all of them were called into the principal's office. At first, they tried to deny everything, but then the principal pulled out a recording, a clear, undeniable record of their voices and actions. By the time it was over, they were in tears. Their parents were called, and each of them walked away with a disciplinary record that would stick with them for years. Watching it all unfold was the most satisfying moment of my life. Chapter 5. To play it safe, I decided to turn all that money into real estate. The property is solid, it doesn't disappear overnight. The moment school let out at noon, I hailed a cab and went straight to the sales office for Riverside Residences. Now, while it can't exactly compare to the luxury villa districts, the people who live there are all either wealthy or powerful. It's the most exclusive development in the city center, with prices averaging $200,000 per square meter. The best part? The units are ready to move in, no risk of being left with an unfinished project. Another reason I chose this place? I remember Grayson's mom once said, "If I could spend just one night there, I would do anything." My dad also seemed to really like it whenever the topic came up. When I walked into the sales office, the atmosphere was awkward. The agents were all busy chatting among themselves, and it was clear they had no interest in acknowledging me. There wasn't even anyone at the front desk. I stood there, unsure who to talk to. Eventually, a young woman emerged from the restroom and noticed me. She greeted me with a bright smile and led me to view the units. She told me she'd been working there for a month and hadn't had a single customer. I was her first. Maybe that's why she was so enthusiastic, bending over backward to help me and being incredibly attentive. Within half an hour, I'd made my decision. The unit she showed me was stunning, luxuriously decorated, the kind of house I'd only ever seen in magazines or TV shows. I'd never imagined I'd get to live in something so beautiful. When the deal was done, I overheard one of the sales agents gasp in disbelief. "Wait, are you telling me that high school girl in a uniform just bought the best unit in Tower 1? The other agents looked like they'd swallowed a lemon. I bet they were kicking themselves for ignoring me. Selling a luxury apartment like that must come with a huge commission. After setting up a time to sign the contract, I headed back to school feeling pretty damn satisfied. Chapter 6. That afternoon, we had a school-wide test. I was scribbling away, completely focused, when Grayson leaned over and tapped his fingers on my desk. "Write fast. Then hand it over," he said, casually tossing his blank test onto my desk. This wasn't unusual. Every time we had a test, he'd somehow arrange to sit near me so I could help him cheat, whether it was letting him copy my answers or straight up doing his paper for him. He even forced me to practice writing in his messy scrawl so the teachers wouldn't notice. But today, I wasn't in the mood. I gave him a cold, indifferent look and tossed his paper right back. For a second, he just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Clearly, he hadn't expected me to refuse. His voice was full of disbelief as he said, "What's wrong with you today? You lost your mind or something?" I leaned back in my chair and smirked. "That's right. I've gone crazy, so maybe you should leave me alone." He narrowed his eyes but didn't say anything else. A few minutes later, he slid a note onto my desk. "You can be honest with me. Are you acting like this just to get my attention?" I nearly gagged right there. The audacity. If he wanted to play, I'd play. Without a word, I grabbed his test paper and started writing. My pen flew across the page, filling in the answers as fast as I could. Grayson sat there grinning like he'd won, propping his chin on his hand and watching me with an infuriatingly smug expression for the rest of the test. But I wasn't mad. I was satisfied too because I knew exactly what was coming next. Chapter 7. After school, Grayson cornered me. No matter how much I resisted, he dragged me into one of the empty classrooms. "Stand by the door and keep an eye out for teachers," he ordered brusquely. Then he turned to the school's queen bee, the prettiest girl in our year, and pulled her into a kiss. But his eyes? They didn't stay on her. No, his gaze stayed locked on me the entire time, daring me to react. This wasn't the first time he'd pulled something like this. He loved making me watch while he got all touchy-feely with other girls, thinking it'd make me jealous or hurt my feelings. He was convinced I still liked him and that this was all part of some grand plan to upset me enough to hurt my dad. What he didn't realize was that I'd stopped liking him a long time ago. In fact, I couldn't stand him. But I played along. I obediently stood by the door as if I were still the same pushover I'd always been. Then, the moment his attention wavered, I bolted. When I got home, my dad was sitting at the dining table, staring into space. "Dad, why are you sitting here alone? Where's Grayson's mom?" He hesitated, looking a little awkward. "She hasn't come back yet. By the way, where's Grayson? Why didn't you come home together?" I dropped my bag onto the floor and sat down, my expression blank. "Grayson? Oh, he's busy kissing someone else." My dad's eyes widened in shock. I'd never told him about all the awful things Grayson had done. As far as my dad and his mom were concerned, he was still the perfect golden boy. "Kissing? What do you mean, kissing? A girl? A boy? How could he be kissing anyone?" My dad was practically sputtering. "Grayson's the school's biggest bully," I said, my voice calm and matter-of-fact. "He's constantly picking fights, cheating on every test, and the only thing he's good at is looking handsome and playing basketball. He's got muscles for brains, Dad. A total waste of space." My dad was stunned. "Why didn't you ever tell me this before?" "Because he said if I told anyone, he'd murder me," I replied bluntly. That was enough to set my dad off. He grabbed his phone and immediately called Grayson's mom to tell her what her son had been up to. But no one picked up. The call went straight to voicemail. After a few more tries, the phone was turned off entirely. My dad's face darkened. "Forget it," he muttered, slamming the phone down. "If she's not coming back, we'll..." Chapter 8. It was the middle of the night when Grayson finally came home. The moment he stepped through the door, he stormed into my room. "Nadia, who told you it was okay to go home by yourself?" I had been on the verge of falling asleep, but his yelling jolted me awake. I groaned, pulling my sleep mask off, and shot him an annoyed look. "What's your problem? Why are you shouting in the middle of the night?" The first thing I noticed as my eyes adjusted was how soaked he was. His clothes were drenched, his hair dripping water onto my bedroom floor, and he stood there looking like some kind of wet, angry stray dog. I had to walk home from school. Alone. In the rain. For 3 hours. I blinked. I'd known it was raining outside, but I hadn't realized how bad it was. Still, I couldn't bring myself to care much. "Oh," I said casually, barely looking at him. Grayson's face twisted with disbelief. "Oh? That's all you've got to say? Oh." His chest rose and fell as he tried to catch his breath, his voice cracking slightly. "This is all your fault. Why didn't you wait for me?" I stared at him unimpressed. "Why would I wait for you?" That shut him up. For a moment, he just stood there, blinking at me like he couldn't process what I'd just said. Then, as if realizing he couldn't win this argument, he switched tactics. "I haven't eaten anything all day," he muttered, his tone softening. "I'm starving." Normally, that pitiful look on his face would have worked. The old me would have caved, rushed to the kitchen, and made him something to eat without a second thought. But not this time. I smiled sweetly at him, tilting my head. "Why don't you go take a shower first? I'll make you something in a minute. What do you want to eat?" "Mac and cheese," he said, his tone still sulky but a little hopeful. He turned and marched out of the room, and as soon as he was gone, I got up, locked the door, and went right back to bed. From the hallway, I heard him rattle the doorknob and then pound on the door. "Nadia! Open the damn door!" I slipped in my earplugs, ignored his shouting, and drifted off to sleep with a satisfied smirk on my face. Chapter 9. The next morning, I walked into the living room feeling refreshed, only to have Grayson grab my wrist before I could even sit down. "You sneaky little brat," he hissed, his eyes blazing. "You actually had the nerve to trick me last night?" I looked him up and down, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept a wink. "Don't tell me you stayed up all night," I said, my voice dripping with mockery. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say a word. He just glared at me, looking like he wanted to strangle me. It was glorious. I pulled my hand free with a shrug and walked off to have breakfast, ignoring the daggers he was glaring at my back. At the dining table, Grayson decided to take out his frustration on my dad instead. He stabbed his chopsticks into his food as if it had personally offended him, his expression full of disdain. "What is this? Are you sure this is even edible?" I slammed my chopsticks down and shot him a sharp look. "Grayson, how old are you? Do you even know what basic manners are? If you don't like the food, don't eat it. But stop acting like a spoiled child." He turned to me, his glare even more intense. "What's your problem? Why have you been acting like this since yesterday? You've been targeting me nonstop." I met his glare head on, my voice calm but cutting. "Maybe you should ask yourself why. If I'm not bothering anyone else, and I'm only targeting you, doesn't that tell you something?" For a second, it looked like he wanted to argue, but my dad stepped in before things could escalate further. He waved his hands, trying to calm us both down, and changed the subject. As we were getting ready to leave, I noticed my dad hesitating, like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. "Dad, Grayson's mom didn't come home last night, did she?" I asked, breaking the silence. He avoided my gaze, his expression awkward. "You know how busy her job is." I sighed, crossing my arms. My dad could be so naive sometimes. He was the kind of person who believed women should be cherished no matter what, and while I agreed with him in theory, I hated seeing him waste his kindness on someone who didn't deserve it. "Dad," I said, giving him a look. "You're not a little kid. You're an adult. Stop being so gullible. You believe everything she says like it's gospel truth. He ruffled my hair with a small smile. Don't worry about me, sweetheart. Everything's fine. And with that, he drove us to school. Chapter 10. The second I stepped into the classroom, the noise hit me like a wave. Everyone was chatting, voices overlapping in a jumble of excitement. It didn't take long to figure out why yesterday's test results were out. Apparently, the test had been unusually easy, and most of the class had done well. Everyone seemed thrilled, like they were celebrating some collective victory. Well, almost everyone. After our morning self-study period, the homeroom teacher walked in and called Grayson out into the hallway. When he finally came back, it was during the first break, and it was impossible to miss the dark storm cloud hanging over him. His face was hard, his jaw clenched, and he was practically radiating anger. The moment he walked through the door, his eyes locked on me. And he didn't stop there. He kept glaring at me for the next 3 periods as if his rage alone could reduce me to ashes. By lunchtime, I'd had enough. I packed my bag, ready to head home for a proper meal, but before I could leave, Grayson stepped in front of me, blocking my way. He slammed his test paper onto my desk with enough force to rattle my pen. His voice was icy, cutting through the chatter of the classroom. Nadia. He hissed, his eyes narrowing. What the hell is wrong with you? Are you trying to start a rebellion? I tilted my head, feigning innocence. I'm sorry, what? You heard me. He snapped, his voice rising. You've got some nerve messing with me like that. Sorry, I don't follow. He slammed his fist down next to the test paper. Don't play dumb. What the hell was that? Are you deaf or just stupid? He practically yelled, his patience completely gone. Huh? I repeated, this time with a little shrug. His face turned red with frustration, his lips parting like he was about to launch into another tirade, but I cut him off with a wave of my hand. All right. I'm done with this conversation. Before he could respond, I grabbed my bag and darted out of the classroom. When I glanced back, I saw him standing there, hands shoved into his pockets, looking completely bewildered. He didn't chase after me, he just stood there, staring after me like I'd broken something fundamental in his brain. It was incredibly satisfying. See, during the test yesterday, Grayson had been especially obvious. His attempts to copy my answers were so blatant that even the kid sitting 3 rows back probably noticed. He wasn't subtle about these things, he never was. But here's the kicker, despite all that effort, the guy still managed to score 3 points. 3. Even the kid who was notorious for barely passing every subject had managed to scrape together 59 points. But Grayson, the fearless school bully, the guy who always made a point of bragging about his genius, had scored an almost comically low 3. By lunchtime, the entire school had heard about it. Rumors spread like wildfire. Grayson's loyal lackey had finally turned on him, and now the mighty had fallen. Everyone was talking about it. Grayson had always ruled the school with fear, no one dared to stand up to him. But now, the one person everyone thought was his spineless sidekick had openly defied him, and the story was everywhere. For once, I wasn't invisible. People were looking at me differently, like I'd done something they'd never have the courage to do. Chapter 11. When I got home, the tension in the air was immediately obvious. My dad was sitting on the couch, looking completely defeated. His shoulders were slumped, his head bowed, and his expression was the kind of tiredness that went beyond physical exhaustion. Standing in front of him was Grayson's mom, her arms crossed as she towered over him, her face twisted with anger. Grayson, meanwhile, was lounging off to the side, fiddling with a shiny new watch that had to be a gift from his mom. He wasn't paying much attention to the argument, his focus was on the watch, but the way his eyes flicked back and forth between his mom and my dad made it clear he was enjoying the show. When he noticed me walk in, he rolled his eyes and let out a scoff. Oh, look who finally decided to show up. His mom sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Where were you this time? Out running around like some wild animal? Girls like you have no shame. Here we go again. I've never understood why this woman hated me so much. You'd think, as a fellow woman, she'd at least sympathize with me. Instead, every word out of her mouth was designed to cut me down. But today, I wasn't in the mood to take it. "Oh, I could never compare to you," I said, my voice light but laced with sarcasm. "At least I come home at night. You're the one staying in hotels like you don't even have a family." That hit a nerve. Grayson immediately shot up from the couch, his face red with anger. "Nadia! What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted. "Watch your mouth. She's your elder, show some respect." I crossed my arms and raised an eyebrow at him. "Respect is earned, Grayson. Your mom hasn't earned mine." His mom gasped dramatically as if I'd just slapped her across the face. Then she turned on my dad, her voice rising. "Is this how you've raised your daughter? No manners, no respect. I'm out there working my ass off to support this family, and this is what I come home to." She kicked the edge of the couch in frustration. "Grayson's been humiliated at school, and you don't even care. Is it because he's not your real son? Is that it?" My dad looked up, his voice calm but firm. "Grayson's always told me he's a top student. How was I supposed to know he was failing?" I couldn't help but smirk. "Failing? That's putting it lightly. Don't you dare turn this on him." Grayson's mom snapped, her attention now locked on me. "You're in his class, aren't you? Why didn't you warn us? Do you think it's funny to see him embarrassed?" I shrugged, meeting her glare with a smile. "How is this my problem? He's the one who failed. If anyone should feel embarrassed, it's you." Grayson's face turned red with fury. "You're the one who wrote my answers. You knew what you were doing, you sabotaged me on purpose." The room went silent. My dad's expression hardened as he turned to me. "Nadia, is this true?" Grayson lunged at me, probably to shut me up, but I brushed him off easily. "Yup," I said with a grin. "Every single test, he's forced me to cheat for him. This time, I decided I was done." Grayson's mom turned pale. For years, she'd bragged about her son's brilliance, how he was destined for greatness. Now, the truth was out, and it hit her like a truck. Without another word, she shoved past me and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I blinked and then frowned. What the hell was that for? I didn't even get to tell her about Grayson's little girlfriend yet. Grayson shot me a murderous glare, but I just smiled. Chapter 12. My dad let out a long, weary sigh. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, and then stopped, hesitating. I could see the conflict on his face, so I quickly jumped in to ease his worries. "Dad, you don't have to worry, okay? I swear from now on, I'm done covering for him. Let him figure out his own mess." He nodded, though he didn't look entirely convinced. My dad's the kind of man who values honesty and hard work, so this whole cheating thing had clearly been eating at him. "Good," he said, his voice firm. "That's how it should be. Everyone needs to take responsibility for their own life. You can't just coast on shortcuts and expect things to work out. You know, like a leech." His words weren't just directed at me, they were a pointed jab at Grayson, who was leaning back on the couch, pretending not to listen. But Grayson wasn't stupid. He picked up on the dig immediately and shot to his feet, his face twisted in anger. "Who the hell are you calling a leech, huh?" For a moment, I froze. Did I just hear him right? Did he seriously just say that to my dad? Grayson wasn't done. He started shouting, his voice growing louder, angrier by the second. I turned to face him, my patience snapping like a dry twig. "Say that again," I said, my voice low and steady, every word dripping with warning. Grayson, as always, wasn't afraid to double down. He crossed his arms and glared at me, his lip curling. "I said you're all leeches. Bloodsuckers. You're living in the house my mom bought, acting like you own the place, and you can't even show a little gratitude. If it weren't for us, you'd all be homeless. And now you've gone and pissed her off so much she left. Do you know how lucky you are? We haven't kicked you out yet?" He didn't stop there. The words kept coming, each one worse than the last, like he was trying to twist the knife deeper. I'd had enough. Without a word, I turned and walked into the kitchen. I could hear him still ranting in the background, but I blocked it out. I opened the drawer, grabbed the sharpest knife I could find, a butcher knife my dad kept so sharp it could slice through steel, and walked back into the living room. The moment Grayson saw the knife in my hand, he froze. "Go on," I said, holding the blade up so it glinted in the fluorescent light. "Say that again. I dare you." Grayson's confidence evaporated in an instant. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, without warning, he bolted for his room, slamming the door shut behind him. The silence left in his wake was almost deafening. Chapter 13. For a moment, my dad just stood there, staring at the doorway Grayson had disappeared through. Then he sighed again, his gaze shifting toward the front door. I knew exactly what, or rather, who he was thinking about. Grayson's mom. Their story wasn't exactly complicated, but it wasn't the kind of thing people liked to talk about either. Back in the day, my dad and Grayson's mom had been classmates. They dated for a while, but she'd dumped him because he wasn't rich enough for her. Not long after, she hooked up with a wealthy businessman and became his mistress. That didn't last though. Eventually, the guy dumped her, leaving her to raise Grayson on her own. Years later, by some twist of fate, she ran into my dad again. By then, my mom had been out of the picture for years. Their divorce was old news, and my dad had been on his own ever since. Maybe he felt sorry for Grayson's mom, or maybe he thought this was his second chance at something real. Either way, it didn't take long for them to rekindle whatever they'd once had. For me, it was a nightmare. At the time, Grayson and I had just started dating. The second he found out our parents were together, he dumped me like I was radioactive. Called me disgusting. Said I was a parasite, just like my dad, living off the house his mom had bought. But here's the thing, that house. My dad paid for most of it. The down payment, the renovations, he covered almost everything. The only reason it was in her name was because my dad didn't care. When I'd asked him why, he just shrugged and said, "It doesn't matter whose name is on it. When two people are together, what's mine is hers, and what's hers is mine." He believed that. He really did. But Grayson didn't. And neither did his mom. She never corrected him when he claimed the house was entirely hers. Instead, she leaned into the lie, playing the victim every chance she got. She'd go on and on about how hard she worked, how much she'd sacrificed for this family, and how ungrateful we all were for her generosity. And she never missed an opportunity to make my dad feel small. She'd come home late every night, claiming she'd been working, and then roll her eyes at my dad for having a lazy job. What she never mentioned was that my dad's lazy job paid more than double her salary. Not that it mattered, she took almost all of it every month and passed it off as her own income. My dad never complained. He swallowed it all, telling himself that keeping the peace was more important than fairness. But the thing is, peace doesn't come from pretending everything's fine. It just lets the resentment fester, simmering below the surface until it boils over. And the truth was, Grayson's mom wasn't even pretending to be committed to this family. I'd known for a while, but I hadn't told my dad until now. I pulled him into my room and handed him my phone. "Watch this," I said quietly. It was a video I'd taken a few weeks ago. Total coincidence, I'd been out looking at apartments when I saw her. In the video, Grayson's mom was walking arm in arm with some middle-aged man. He was overweight, balding, and dressed like he was trying too hard to look wealthy. She, on the other hand, was all smiles, her face lit up with the kind of sweetness I'd never seen her show my dad. The two of them walked into a hotel together, laughing. Chapter 14. My dad stared at the video for several seconds before coming to his senses, muttering, This can't be, she's not that kind of person. Dad, the evidence is right in front of you." I watched my dad's devastated expression and sighed. "Seeing is believing, Dad?" If you don't trust me, come with me. We took a taxi to the hotel. I had already informed the receptionist to notify me when Grayson's mom showed up again. Money can solve many problems. When Grayson's mom's room ordered food, I disguised myself as a server, hiding my phone in the cart with only the camera exposed, and knocked on the door. Grayson's mom opened the door, barefoot and scantily clad, with a strange smell emanating from her. Because I wore a mask and kept my head down, she didn't recognize me. I pushed the cart into the room and the camera captured everything. The room reeked of that strange smell, and a pot-bellied man lay on the bed, shirtless, scrolling through his phone like a king. It wasn't even the same man I had seen before. The floor was littered with torn clothes and 2 suspiciously stained condoms. The smell was so foul that I couldn't help but gag. Grayson's mom's face darkened, and she grabbed me. "What's wrong with you? Sick and still working?" Her tugging pulled off my mask and she froze. I sneered, raising my phone to her face. "I'm not here to work, I'm here to catch you in the act." Grayson's mom screamed, startling the man on the bed, who hurriedly dressed. "What's going on?" Of course, I captured everything on camera. Grayson's mom tried to snatch my phone, but I dodged her nimbly. She was both angry and scared, but had to put on a placating smile. "Nadia, listen to me, it's all a misunderstanding. Give me the phone and I'll delete the video. Don't let your dad worry." The man grabbed a vase from the bedside table. They approached me from both sides. "What do you think you're doing to my daughter?" My dad appeared, flanked by a group of relatives. Chapter 15. I laughed heartily, ignoring Grayson's mom's venomous glare. "I'm not recording, I'm on a video call." Grayson's mom and the man became the targets of my relatives' scorn. My uncle, who had opposed my dad's marriage to Grayson's mom from the start, was the most vocal. Now, Grayson's mom's reputation was ruined among us. The man, unused to such verbal abuse, lost his temper and pointed at Grayson's mom. "She seduced me. She slept with all our bosses to climb the ladder." Grayson's mom, red-eyed and tearful, begged my dad, showing such humility for the first time. But my dad was done. He clenched his fists, then turned away, saying, "I don't hit women. Take care of yourself." My dad took me away, leaving Grayson's mom to face the crowd's condemnation. But it wasn't over. I sent the video to Grayson and then blocked him. Next, I contacted a lawyer to handle my dad's divorce. My dad had no objections, only worried about the money he had given Grayson's mom, fearing he couldn't afford a lawyer. I grinned. "Dad, don't worry about money. It's not a problem." With $70 million left after buying the house, we were set for life. Chapter 16. The lawyer moved quickly, bringing the documents within days. Besides the lawyer and us, a bunch of our relatives were present because I had shared the video in our family group chat. I also shared it in Grayson's family group chat. As a result, none of Grayson's relatives showed up, probably too embarrassed. Our side was full of people, all looking at Grayson and his mom with disdain. My uncle, feeling sorry for me, patted my head, saying I had suffered enough with such a stepmother. I felt a strange satisfaction, realizing this was what it felt like to have support. Grayson had often yelled at me in school, backed by his friends and girlfriends, even teachers siding with him. So he had always bossed me around with impunity. But now everyone was on my side. I felt great. Grayson looked dejected, still reeling from his mom's infidelity. But the worst was yet to come. The house he had always thought would be his was now at stake. When the lawyer declared the house as marital property, to be split equally, Grayson's mom protested. "The house is in my name. I paid for it. You can't take it from me." I calmly presented the bank records, showing my dad paid over 90% of the cost. If it went to court, we would win. I kindly reminded her. "Miss Miranda, if we go to court, you won't even get half." But she was stubborn and insisted on going to court. So be it. When the verdict came, Grayson's mom was stunned and threw a tantrum. "The house is in my name. It's mine. You all conspired to cheat me out of it." Grayson stood beside her, wishing he could disappear. I watched coldly as the officers restrained Grayson's mom. I knew why she wanted the house so badly. She had been fired, her reputation ruined, and no one would hire her. The house was her last hope. In our social circle, her infamy had spread, and even Grayson faced scorn at school, a far cry from his former glory. Chapter 17. Leaving the courthouse, my dad silently drove me home on his electric scooter. He hadn't spoken much these past few days, looking older and more worn. As we neared home, he suddenly asked, "Nadia, do you know why I like riding this scooter?" I stayed silent, and he continued. "Because when we were young, she said she liked sitting on the back, feeling the wind." I didn't know what to say. People change, just like I no longer fawn over Grayson, and Grayson's mom no longer likes riding scooters. Otherwise, she wouldn't have become a mistress. After discussing it, the house was to be sold, with 90% of the proceeds going to my dad and 10% to Grayson's mom. My dad and I packed our things because we all had to move out. Grayson's mom knocked, asking to have a meal together. At the table, she acted like a perfect housewife, bringing out a feast and wiping sweat from her face, then started seeking sympathy, saying how hard it was to cook so much. Grayson dryly echoed her words. If I hadn't seen Grayson hiding the takeout boxes, I might have believed her. What a joke! She cooked one meal and called it hard work. My dad had done all the housework since they married, never complaining. I pulled my dad. "Dad, I want hot pot. Let's go out." My dad was about to agree when Grayson's mom stopped me, her eyes red with tears. "Nadia, do you hate me so much you won't eat my cooking?" Grayson hugged his mom, giving me a reproachful look. I stared back until he looked away. I laughed. "You know whether you cooked or ordered takeout. And you ordered dishes my dad doesn't like. Are you doing this on purpose?" Their expressions were priceless. Don't give us that fake remorse. My dad isn't a fool, and neither am I. I knew their game because I saw Grayson's mom holding a cheat sheet. Stupid and malicious. I quickly packed our things and left with my dad. He praised me. "Nadia, you've grown up and can handle things." With $1 billion, how could I not grow up? Chapter 18. I took my dad to the house I bought, and he was speechless with surprise, thinking he was dreaming. After confirming it was real, he excitedly started planning the decor. The next day, I went to school as usual. Because of the scandal, my relationship with Grayson was exposed. People who had once looked at me with disdain now showed sympathy and kindness. Nadia was so good to Grayson because they were siblings. We misunderstood her for so long. Why didn't Grayson say anything and even led the bullying? Who knows? Maybe Grayson's just a jerk. Thinking about it, Nadia's really pitiful. A stepmom who cheats, a brother who bullies. It was annoying. Why pity me? I was thrilled with my newfound wealth. Now, Grayson and I had switched places. Grayson faced scorn and disdain from classmates, even his so-called friends distancing themselves or kicking him when he was down. Meanwhile, I received kindness from many. Without my help, Grayson's grades plummeted, and even the teachers lost respect for him. Chapter 19. Grayson became timid at school, a shadow of his former confident self. Half a month later, I heard Grayson's mom was hospitalized. She had been caught trying to seduce another married man after failing to find a job, and the man's wife had beaten her severely. Grayson's mom spent a week in the hospital, using up all the money from the house sale. I thought that was the end, but after being discharged, she shamelessly begged my dad to reconcile. But once my dad made up his mind, he wouldn't change it. Just as my uncle's opposition to their marriage had failed, Grayson's mom's pleas for reconciliation were futile. My dad blocked all her contacts. When she came to school to find me, my dad had someone warn her that if she touched a hair on my head, she would regret it. I thought that would finally end it, but one day after school, she blocked my dad's way. Grayson's mom was no longer the same. She used to flaunt her jewelry, but now she was plain, without a single piece of gold or silver. She looked at us sincerely, shamelessly saying, "I know I was wrong. I know you still love me. Let's live a good life together, okay?" My dad frowned and stepped aside. "Please move." Her face stiffened, but she continued, "Even if not for yourself, think of the child. Can you bear to let Nadia grow up without a mother's love?" I almost gagged. She had never shown me any love, and now she was pretending. Besides, my bank balance was my real mother. My dad ignored her, driving us away on his scooter. What's more infuriating than seeing someone you once looked down on doing better than you? Grayson's mom wasn't giving up. She followed us in a taxi. My dad drove into Riverside Residences, and her taxi was stopped at the gate. She got out and chased after us, panting when she caught up. She tried to smile charmingly but only managed a sweaty grimace. I snapped. "Are you done? You're like a shadow." She looked around and asked, "What are you doing here?" "Going home, of course." Her eyes widened. "You live here?" I smirked. "Of course. Impossible." She screamed, looking at my dad. "How could you afford a place here? You must be lying." My dad calmly called security to escort her out. Seeing the respectful way the guards treated my dad, she finally believed it. She struggled, shouting, "Honey! Tell them I'm your wife. We're married." My dad ignored her. We both knew she wasn't truly remorseful. From the start, she had treated my dad like a dog to summon and dismiss at will and saw me as a threat to her son's inheritance. Chapter 20. The next morning at school, I found breakfast on my desk. "Sweetheart, do you like the breakfast I brought?" Grayson appeared, trying to be charming, saying shyly, "Nadia, we're not siblings anymore. Let's be lovers again." I was speechless. "Are you okay? Need a hospital? I can call an ambulance." Grayson wasn't deterred, holding my hand, lovingly saying, "I realized I can't live without you. Let's start over, okay?" I noticed his wrist was bare, his once prized watch gone. I laughed, guessing his mom had told him about our new home. She knew my dad was a lost cause, so she aimed at me. I pulled my hand back, wiping it with a wet wipe. Grayson looked embarrassed by my obvious disdain. I threw the breakfast at him. "Sorry, but I'm not interested." He had been with so many girls, who knew what diseases he might have. Just looking at him disgusted me. He seemed angry, about to lash out, but I cut him off. "You don't want me to post the video of your mom's affair online, do you?" His mom's reputation was already ruined. If I posted the video, it would be even worse. "This is my final warning. Keep bothering us, and you'll face the consequences." Grayson's face looked like he had swallowed something foul. He probably never imagined I'd have leverage over him. Chapter 21. Grayson became completely silent, turning into an invisible presence in the class. In the next exam, his scores were still at the bottom, and he was moved to a regular class, kicked out of the advanced class. Grayson's mom caused a scene at school but was exposed for her affair and left in disgrace. Then, something big happened. Grayson got the school beauty pregnant. Though they had broken up, she had been pregnant for a while without realizing it. Now, as her pregnancy advanced, she was distraught, and her parents came to school, beating Grayson severely and sending him to the hospital. The school beauty's family was powerful and threatened to ruin Grayson. His mom had to spend money, apologize, and even degrade herself to get their forgiveness. After this, Grayson became infamous, even making the news. He and his mom couldn't stay in the city any longer and left in disgrace.